Hello, and welcome to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, where we attempt to apply logic and reason around the regions to religion and politics. I'm your host, Mac, from Skeptic, and I have Christy Santiago on the way. We also have our man behind the scenes, our Oz behind the curtain, Natcha Witness. Say hi, Natcha, if you care to. I'm looking at our thumbnail right now, and I was looking for Natcha in the middle of it, and I'm glad he's not, because that's not a great scene to be hiding in. So, let's give everyone just about a minute here to kind of come in, and we'll see what the chat looks like. We got Gut, we got Smitty, we got RB, we got Brantley. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. I'll say hi. And you guys can see how far behind I am in the stream. I'm going to mute myself because it's about to start. Happy Friday, everyone. I'll say it for Christy. Cool. Okay. Oh, also thanks for getting us to 824 subscribers, quarter of the way to the 900 mark, and then straight on to 1,000. Sorry we've missed a few shows the last couple of months. Holidays are coming up, scheduling conflicts, just a lot. And there's so much going on that we're not reporting on now, but we're going to try to back it up a little bit, fill you guys in on our view on things going on. Smitty, me too. I need Christy here. But she'll be here soon. So alas, we will start. All right. First thing, Ohio's weed pulling. I'm in Ohio. All right. I don't always like to discover things in my state because I feel like it's, I don't know, self-centered in a way. I really like covering national news and geopolitical situations. But what's been going on in Ohio recently is it's like a trial and error state right now because it's so dark reddish purple. So one of the things that they're doing, if you guys don't already know, back in November, the Ohioan people passed issue 2, which basically legalized marijuana. And since then, Captain Mr. Mike DeWine, governor man, and some of his legislators are trying to make it less to not legal, even though we passed it. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the story from AP real quick here. And this was on December 6th. Banning marijuana growing at home, increasing the substances tax rate, and altering how those taxes get distributed are among the vast changes the Ohio State Senate Republicans proposed on Monday to a marijuana legalization measure approved by voters last month. Maybe I drank too much before I started reading, or maybe I didn't drink enough. Tripping over my words already. All right, the changes emerged suddenly in committee just days before the new law is set to take effect. Though their fate in the full Senate and the GOP-led House is still unclear. The ballot measure, dubbed Issue 2, passed on November 7th. With the election, it was 57%. and it is set to become law this Thursday, which would have been last week. Let me look. Is that, yeah, that would have been like the 7th. That was last Thursday, and this was written on the 6th, is when AP reported on it. And it would be making Ohio the 24th state to legalize marijuana. I always want to say marijuana because I watched that 70s show. Marijuana, for adult recreational use. But as a citizen initiated statute, the legislator is free to make tweaks on it, of which they are attempting plenty. All right, so Senator Mike Ruley, I don't even know who that is. Maybe I should know. He says that the goal of this committee is to provide the people's wishes with a safe product. Down a little lower, some in the Ohio Senate proposed to gut issue two's most important provisions, including home grow and social equity, and to put in place higher taxes that will entrench the illicit market and force Ohioans to continue to buy their cannabis products in Michigan. So they're just fucking up the market over here. He said in a statement, this is not what voters wanted. And it's not. They want to buy it here. They want it legal in Ohio, which it is, and they also want it accessible in Ohio. But you usually have to make a good old trip up to Michigan at the dispensary up there. And I just live a little south of Toledo, Ohio. And it takes about an hour and a half to get to the dispensary where people usually like to go to get it. Too damn far. Just to sit at home and relax. The Senate changes still have a long way to go. However, if they clear the Senate floor, the Republican majority House, which leans more in favor of overall recreational marijuana legalization than the Senate, they would still have to agree on or to the many changes. GOP Governor Mike DeWine has supported going along with at least the basics approved by voters. Also must sign off on them. So this has been a really goofy, shitty thing. Are you allowed to grow it? We can have, I can't see because there's a heart in my way. Have up to 4 plants here. Yeah, I didn't know that. And it's gonna be Alabama, Mississippi. Excuse me. Trying to read the chat too. I don't know if we're allowed to grow it. That's the thing right now. This is the only reporting that I have on it, and I don't know if it got through the Senate here in Ohio. They want to increase the approved tax on marijuana products 10% to 15%. Cultivators would also be taxed at a rate under the revision, so an extra tax. On top of that, just wrecking the market that they're trying to set up here, really making it not worth it and probably not functional. If you don't give the people what they want and you fuck with it too much, it's going to look like it's really not worth it. The Senate legislation would also reduce the amount of recreational marijuana someone can legally possess at a time, as well as lower the THC levels for marijuana plants from the statute's original 35% to 25%, and the levels for extracts from the original 90% to 50%. So, and it goes on a little bit here, but the point is, the main point of all of this is, in that first paragraph that I botched pretty well. Let me back it up here. All right, I'll reread this part because that's the main issue here, is that the ballot measure dubbed issue 2 passed November 7th, with a 57% approval rating, was set to become law on Thursday, the 7th, making Ohio the 24th state to legalize marijuana for adult recreational use. But as a citizen-initiated statute, the legislator is free to make tweaks, of which they're making plenty. So that's the problem. Like, we passed it, and it was a pretty comprehensive bill. Actually, let me pull up Ohio issue 2. Got my clicky keyboard here. One, want to just read the issue for you. It's just one. I don't know if we can read that small. We'll try it out, guys. I didn't expect to do this part, but I think it'd be good and important. Okay. To enact Chapter 3780 of the Ohio Revised Code, which would define adult use cannabis to mean marijuana as defined in section 3719.01, yada yada. Authorize the division to regulate, investigate, and penalize adult use of cannabis operators, adult use testing laboratories, and individuals required to be licensed. So, regulating it. Next bullet is legalize and regulate the cultivation, processing, sale, purchase, possession, home grow, and use of cannabis by adults at least 21 years of age. That sounds fair. That sounds great. I mean, I almost wanted to say that I'd shoot for 18. Because, like, if you're old enough to go die in a war for your country, you should be old enough to drink, and you should be old enough to smoke and pretty much do whatever the hell you want. But at the same time, I don't think you should be 18 to make that big decision straight out of high school. I think that, like, we should probably raise the age for that more than anything. But that's my personal opinion. I mean, if I had to choose one, I'd probably move that age up. But I also wouldn't mind moving the drinking age to be lower. That's my own personal thoughts. And Christy's in the chat. I didn't notice. And what the Beck, native atheist. Welcome, guys. Good to see you all. Sorry, my face is so close. I have to get in there to read it. We also would create additional protections for individuals. Shadow Kitty 2, welcome. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to miss you. Thanks for letting me know, Natcha. All right, create additional protections for individuals who engage in permitted adult use cannabis conduct. Establish the Cannabis Social Equity and Jobs Program to require the Department of Development to certify program applicants based on social and economic disadvantage. Define social disadvantage to include membership in a racial or ethnic minority group, disability status, gender, or long-term resident in the area of high unemployment. So like they really go through a decent amount of this. Authorize a landlord or an employer to prohibit the use or the adult use of cannabis in certain circumstances, and prohibit the operation of a motor vehicle while using or under the influence of adult use cannabis, and from using any other combustible adult use cannabis while a passenger in a motor vehicle. Sorry, this is really small, and I already read choppy. Limit criminal liability for certain financial institutions that provide financial services to any lawful adult use cannabis operator or testing laboratory licensed under proposed law. And again, the things that they were trying to take out were the social equity clause of this legislation, and there's a big one, the home grow. So not make it legal to grow at home. And I mean, I think that's utterly insane. If you're going to yeah, because that was one of the things that was in here that we voted on. Like, it was a really comprehensive bill, and now they're basically just trying to gut it. Like, some of the money raised by taxes was supposed to go to social equity and like help people with like rehab, and they want to just move that over to the police departments. And they also want to make sure that private companies and also excuse me, cities and localities can make it or keep it illegal in their areas. And so much for making it legal in the state when it can be spotty illegal all over the state. So this is really just a really good, fine example of how Republicans like to ruin things, right? Even if voters get their way, they're like, well, we don't really agree, so we're just gonna go ahead and change what you want. And that's really all there is to it. But we'll see how well Christy was listening to me talk, because she's here.
Hi. The computer's running through multiple updates. We don't know how long it's going to be. Apparently that was the problem. So James is amazing. Was able to put all that in and it stayed on. So
are you in the living room?
This is the salon. There's the chair.
Yeah. Yeah, you're out front. Yeah. I know where you are, Christy.
Want to see something funny, you guys? Hold on, let me spin around. Okay. Do you see Bill Clinton?
I do.
Yeah, I put a diamond hoop earring in his ear and a bucket hat on him because that's what you do.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Yes. All right. I do like Matt's hat. Thank you, Riley. I appreciate it. I like this hat too. Mr. Shadow Kitty said, I drive like 20 miles per hour when I'm stoned. My rear view mirror shows a line of angry drivers shaking their fists at me.
There you go.
Fantastic.
Hold on.
James, welcome. 8%.
So hot.
Yeah, we got more coming in. All right. Yeah, so I guess it's kind of legal here in Ohio. I'm really confused, honestly. Like, I wanted to share the story because it's the shadiness of the GOP. over here that's trying to gut this bill, and it's stunning. Like, even to me, I'm just like, wow, they can do that. Like, that's something they can do. I didn't even know. So I was caught off guard. I thought it was ridiculous, and I wanted to share. So, do you have any thoughts on legal, not legal weed in Ohio?
I was very, very proud of Ohio's referendum. Not just that one, but bodily autonomy. Overwhelmingly, they even showed that a minimum of 23% of pro-life evangelicals voted to make abortion safe and legal in the state of Ohio
There you go.
on that same ballot.
Yeah.
So
Look, I don't know, like when you said that, I felt like how I want to state it is like I'm completely fine if you have a pro-life position. That is super fine by me. I love it. Have your position, run with it, argue with people about it, but don't tell other people what their position should be. Right?
right.
I am really of that mindset of like, look, if you don't want an abortion, don't get one.
Ah, yes.
Like, that's great. If you think other people shouldn't get an abortion, tell me about it, but don't legislate like it. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, your rights end where they affect other people's rights, where others people's begin.
Where's your Santa hat? We need to get you one too.
I have a plethora of hats. I literally would probably melt and die if I put anything on right now. My hair is literally still wet. It's air drying because there's no way I'm running the blow dryer right now. It's so hot.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I get it. How warm is it today? How humid? How warm?
Well, how funny is this? It said a couple hours ago, it said the temperature was 70 with the feels like of 77.
Oh,
So that's the humidity. We're about to have torrential rainstorm starting tomorrow and going for a couple of days. There's supposed to be flooding. So it'll be 100% humidity for, 48 hours.
geez.
Mr. Bean, what are you? No, come
What
on,
a
crazy
bean.
kid. Yeah, he's being a total bean. All right, let me move these. He's stepping on. Yeah,
Oh,
all
good.
of.
Good.
He's like
He
just
just wants to become Edward Scissorhands. He's fine. He's great.
bean
All right.
scissor.
Matcha. I think we are ready for the next bit. And I believe that's Biden. Fucking Biden. It's fucking Biden.
I not with someone else's hoo-ha.
I would fuck him with someone else's dick.
Yeah.
Is that what you were saying?
Or lady bits, equal opportunist here. I mean, he's from a different generation, so I mean, would it females' private parts probably? Yeah.
Gotta use the right lingo.
Mm-hmm.
You use the
Or
right lingo, you get a bingo. All right, I don't know if that was.
here's a dime. Call someone who cares. That's from his generation.
There's a dime.
Yeah.
Oh
I mean,
man.
mine. They were 25 cents as a kid. Okay.
All right, so we have Biden's approval rating. It's plummeting. I had a snazzy name for this too. Oh, Biden's losing it, and it's in the polls and his mind. But we were just gonna imply the dementia part and move on with what he's losing competitively. So his disapproval rating is high. It's really high. Yeah. All right. Right now, Trump's beating him on a 538 poll at a 5 points. Am I reading that right?
Mm.
No, that was last. That was the last cycle. Trump was beating him already, and he's still beating him. So what are we at now? We have okay, December. Here we go. Redfield and Wilson strategies. We have, make sure I got the right person on each one because it's not telling me who. It's really, it's gonna give me a green. All right, I think Biden's green. All right, so Biden's at 40. Trump is at 47 at the Redfield. More
Winning by 4 to 5 points, depending on the poll. And I did take a poll 4 or 5 days ago. I'm like, I get all the text messages and all the emails, and we need a poll last week on do you approve of Biden. They give you, choose all of the things that you are proud of or that you approve of, and then there's a spot that says other, and if you had clicked on other, it says what would you like, fill that in. And of course I said stop supporting the far right-wing government of Israel and cease fire now. Like that, I don't think I'm the only one that did that. And then today I got another poll, and the last one, it was a couple maybes I had clicked on. This one I just said no. If it was today, I can't. And that sucks. I'm in a swing state. And
yeah.
do we want Project 25, which is what's going to happen if any Republican gets voted in? No. Or Biden. Like, one is less horrendous to the American people. And
so I have more on that in a minute. So bring it back to this. I want to get the other polls here real quick. I'll just kind of show you.
Okay.
Right. We got a YouGov poll. Biden at 39%. We have Trump at 55. Rasmussen reports. Did I say that right? 43% Biden and 56% Trump. And Harris Insights and Analytics is 43% Biden, 55% Trump. And that is plus 15, plus 11, plus 17, plus 18, plus 12, all in favor of Trump. This is outrageous. This is ridiculous. Because Biden sucks, and not in a good way, so hard. That he's just getting whooped by a crazy motherfucker who has been accused of over 90 crimes. It's almost unbelievable that he's even trying to run. But he's not just trying to run. Him and his administration is trying to make sure that no one knows about his competitors in the race: Marianne Williamson, Dean Phillips, Jane.
Morning Joe, just this week, not that I watched them, I did see someone had taken a clip and used it as a thumbnail, and it literally said, what competitors? Like, what challengers? I'm just like, okay, first of all, Marianne has a higher percentage in the polls than Vivek,
Nikki Haley,
and Nikki. Yeah, and the not that Trump is doing any debates and he's being anti. Right. However, we're supposed to be the Democratic Party, and the Republican challengers are taking it upon themselves, and the networks who support Republican Party are taking it upon themselves to have these debates with or without the, Cheeto McTweeto. And so I just don't understand why. I mean, I do. If there's a challenger, they're going to bring up on the debate stage, President Biden, didn't you say you were going to run for one, and then you were going to help save the nation, the soul of the nation, and then get behind a younger, more energetic, like you said these things. So
yeah, but
and
presidents lie when they run for office, and we know that. So look, I just threw it out in a tweet that no one will see because no one sees my tweets anymore. It's like there's no traffic, probably because I don't pay.
I'm gonna.
But I'll go ahead and just pull it up verbatim because I want to know. I want to know what Christy thinks about my tweets. That's what I care about. So Christy thinks.
Ooh.
Just take me to my thingy.
Oh, keep your thingy to yourself, Mac. We had this
Oh,
conversation.
take me to my thingy, please. All right. All right. My tweet was let's not support the DNC this cycle. Like whether or not you want to vote for Joe Biden, we want a Democratic Party. Democratic parties hold debates and like candidates on ballots for elections. So my point is, look, when the DNC sends you a text message or an email like, hey, you haven't donated anything, I responded kind of like Christy did, is like, yeah, no primary debates, no support. Like, that's it. And that's what we need to do. I think like that really should be, I think, the left's goal this election cycle is to fuck the DNC. Give them no funding. Just, I mean, you can fucking vote blue no matter who if you want. Don't give the DNC fucking anything. Not a dime. Don't support anyone who's funding through the DNC. You know they're just vote blue. We don't need the DNC just to vote blue. I don't even want to vote blue no matter who. You know, I'm against that. But even I'm saying do that rather than support them monetarily because they need to die as an entity. It needs to be done with. We don't need the DNC anymore. They're what keeps fucking up our elections. RNC too, but we don't need to. That's their fucking problem, right? That's the right's problem. It's not ours. Right's this way, but it's bonkers. We need to not support the DNC. We need to tank the DNC. They need to be done. What's your thoughts?
I mean, as an institution, they have entirely too much power that they can. Their base, you know, on paper, their base is who you are in any election, any political party is supposed to cater to their base. Mm-hmm. That's how you get people excited. The Democratic Party has not done that. I don't even know when I can say the last time they genuinely, you know, not just catered to
their base,
but used policies that would make their base not just go vote, but bring, 10 people with them because they're like, oh this policy, let me tell you about it. That I can't remember. And it's just really, really sad.
But I mean, it's not just sad, it's infuriating. This is fucking what like makes Jimmy Dore like famous and gives him a fucking following. Right? I loved Jimmy Dore. I followed him too long because I just gave him too much grace because he's right about so much. And he points out the dirty diaper dumpster fire that is the DNC. It's just, it's no fucking shit. Something's wrong with it. It's a goddamn distraction.
Listen, I think it's very important as someone who has voted on, the left side of American political, compass, to point out the failings of the Democratic Party, to point out the failings of elected leaders in the Democrat. I find that is imperative as someone who cares about these things. However, the electorate in this country is not politically literate. They are not media literate. They are not. So when you come on a platform, i.e. Jimmy Dore, and go ham on the Democratic Party and elected leadership, in things that they deserve, but do not follow it up with these things are horrible. However, this party over here, I'm not talking about them because they're so far over, gone. It's fascist. It's not, they're a billion, squared worse. He doesn't, and most of them do not follow that up. So people who are not
He
politically
acts like
literate,
Trump is better.
they hear that, they say, oh my gosh, let me look these things up. That is true. I guess I'll vote for this party. And that is not the way to do it.
Yeah, but he knows better. He knows
Yeah.
better.
But money, money, money,
It is.
money.
I think he's absolutely.
Mac, if you and I wanted to be horrible, I mean, I wouldn't be able to look at myself on October 7th when that happened. My heart was pounding, and I'm telling Stacy, oh my God, they are going to get annihilated by it. This is so horrible. And then a little bit later, I remember telling Stacy, if I was a bad person, we could right now go on, on stocks and invest in Raytheon and Honeywell, and we could make so much money. And the people who did throw money into those, whether it's Raytheon or any of those weapons manufacturers, on that day or the next day, let's say there are a couple of them that threw in 100,000 or 200,000, they made millions already off of it.
Yeah.
That's so. And then I think, Mac and I also, if we wanted to be grifters, we could if we just wanted to sell the soul we don't believe we have, we could say that, we found the Lord, and from atheist to Christian or whatever it might be, or Democratic to Republican. This we lost her. We found our. We could make so much money.
You know what's happened in the last 2 minutes, Christy? Hi, Stacy. I said, you know what's happened in the last 2 minutes? I just came in contact. I came in contact with so many high-level ideas.
Oh man!
Just in recovery mode.
Yeah,
and I believe in God, and I also believe in Israel, and they do everything right all the time. Yeah. And I don't know how I didn't see this back when I was a leftist and an atheist.
Yeah. No, it's sick the amount of money that's out there for people who will just, knowing better, do the wrong thing because there is so much money to be made. And I don't play around with stocks and all that. However, if I wanted to make guaranteed money, it would be during significant wartime investing in weapons manufacturers. I couldn't even if I was guaranteed, if I did this by this time, I would have this amount.
No. Look, I mean, I hope everyone knows in our audience that we don't do this for the money, and I hope you enjoy me eating popcorn in front of you. It's fine, it's a little bit stale. We don't do this for the money.
We're breaking.
We not to tell everyone all of our numbers, but we make like less than $100 each off of doing this show a year, and I spend over $100 a year to do the show with Zoom. Like, we go negative just to come on here and talk about it because we give a shit about what's going on in the world. And I mean, I was thinking about it today. Like, I have to stop at work sometimes on what I'm listening to, because I feel like I'm not giving it enough attention to just listening to it. Sometimes you got to stop and you have to watch also what's going on to feel like you can like pay a little bit of tribute to it. And neither of us are any kind of professional or have any kind of credentials to cover any of this stuff, but we both understand.
And I can I can cover gray professionally, but that's where that.
Don't cover gray. That's my namesake and your thing now.
Yeah.
But no, it's we understand that more attention helps the cause, right? And that's literally us paying attention to these stories every day. And then the 10 to 15 people who show up every live show during the show to listen, you guys help too. We just need to pay attention. Do me a favor and put it in the chat. It will make me feel good. Like, is there at least one person you can think of? Just type a number. 1, 2, 3. How many people do you talk to a week about one of the topics that we cover here? Right? The elections, the money in politics, Israel, Gaza. Like, how many people do you guys talk to? Because I talk to people about this, not just here, but out there, and it means something to me when someone's like, I know that I disagree with you on a lot of things, Mac, but everything that you've said really makes a lot of sense to me. So I know you're not stupid, which makes me feel good that people don't think I'm stupid, but also that it, like, I don't find it difficult to say that, hey, I know you're saying that Israel has the right to defend itself, and I agree with that. And I know you think you disagree with me already, but let me tell you, self-defense isn't going in and shooting up someone's family after someone punches you in the face. That's not self-defense. That's just like, that's just mass murder. So what Israel is doing is terrorism, and that's not hard to get to, right? Like, politics. What drives me fucking mad on a daily basis is how politics isn't difficult. It's not hard to sit down and world build for a couple minutes and say, what's important to me in society? How do I think I don't fucking have to know how the world works. You can make it the fuck up. That's what like philosophers have done for like thousands of years. Do your best and then try to translate that to the real world while you're learning about it.
Example?
You're asking for an example from me? Perfect.
Yes.
I used to think, without knowing almost anything about healthcare, and I still don't know a lot about it, that we just need to abolish insurance. Health insurance, just abolish them, all of them. No health insurance whatsoever. I'm like, one of two things will happen. Hospitals will lower the prices because people need to come to the doctor, or like, they want to and they kind of need to, but no one's going to come if they literally just can't pay, right?
Well, so the middleman prices wouldn't be there, so it would be cheaper immediately, right?
So hospitals will tank or prices will go down. That was my theory. And then I kind of like reached or I found out what like the Medicare for all position was. I'm like, oh, just pay for it with taxes. That still cuts the middleman. It just makes it a public good. It's like, we don't need to. I hate toll roads. Do I need to say more? We don't need toll roads.
Don't call them toll. Call them privatized roads. Right. That makes people. You hear toll road and it's like, I grew up with them. They're just part of life. But when you say, hey, this road, this highway, this interstate, this freeway has been privatized so that individual companies, corporations, umbrella LLCs are making the money, people are like, wait, why, what? And words have a lot of meaning, especially to a populace who is, politically illiterate And that I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's most of the time it's nobody's fault except for our nation's education. It's not a feature, it's not a bug, it's the feature.
Yeah. And the more you learn about politics,
The more
the actual
you know.
enactment of policies, the more you can decide how you actually want to run a country or run a society. But going back to my example, it's just like, yeah, I started with healthcare, just thinking like, man, just fuck insurance companies. They're obviously like the worst fucking thing we do in this country, or close to it, I thought. And then that helps you realize, okay, I've come to this Medicare for all conclusion. Human infrastructure seems to be important to me. What is that? You know, and education falls in there. Like, okay, well, I was homeschooled for 8 years, but rethinking that a little bit, like schooling should just like be some kind of standardized. I don't want to be authoritarian. I've come to that conclusion. I don't want to be authoritarian, but I want everyone to have a standardized education. So I have to balance those two things. Like everyone has to learn this. Everyone needs this baseline to get along in the world. And not just get along, but like to get along, to go through life as an educated person in the workforce. You need to know certain things, and sometimes philosophy is more important than math. Like just knowing how to deal and argue with your boss or your coworkers or your goddamn next door neighbor. You don't learn how to talk to people in high school, and we don't have that. Philosophy should be a huge part of our education system, and it should be paid for with taxes because it helps the country run.
Yes.
Helps the country run. And this civics. And what? Civics?
Yeah.
Agree. But no, agree.
You know, like agreed. Marjorie Taylor and many others, it's obvious they didn't know how any of that worked, and they still will say things where you're like, that's not how any of this works. And then they're educated and they'll go on their YouTube channels where they're talking all day long instead of governing and say, I learned this, and it's, how about it doesn't work like this? It works like this, because they didn't know. And these are people who are running for office, which I think regular people should run for office, not necessarily fascist goons, but they should run for office. And it would be better if they were not just politically literate, but passionate about that type of education, and are able to call out other elected officials when they do or say something inappropriate or just factually wrong about the system, and can say, actually, if you look right here, this is how it is, because they can. It's so important, and it's not taught for a reason. You can't start our documents with "we the people" when that's not true. Nom 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 nom. Sorry, I'm doing sound effects for you. Mr. Bean is going to you just did a Mr. Bean, Mac.
Did I? Yeah, I couldn't unmute. I clicked it like 17 times. Anyways. Smitty said, I believe in mandatory private school.
I think private schools should be eliminated.
Yeah, I do too, especially private school, but homeschool I'm not 100% on. I don't think it's a great idea, but I also think there should be some kind of option for it. I think the curriculum needs to be standardized.
That's where I'll caveat, I am not a supporter of homeschooling at all. However, if we had some sort of mandated, not just curriculum, but these are the things that by this age, they have to understand this, like we do in school for homeschoolers, and not just regional, like this state doesn't care about this and this one doesn't. No, do we want to be the best or don't we? It's that simple. And being the best depends on an educated populace. Science and math, and not just those in history and language and the arts. All of these things make a very well balanced education, and everything starts with education. Like for instance, people
Yeah.
who believe that the Civil War was about states' rights, my rebuttal to that is always states' rights to do what? However, they believe this because their education was inadequate. Another example, go to a foreign country. Israelis literally do not believe the facts of the founding of that nation, or how Palestinian people were chased down with blow torches, and literally a son was thrown in an oven, and then the father was too during the Nakba. Like, these things aren't taught. These are atrocities, and if you're taught them, you're, as a human, I wouldn't want that to happen to me. I can't even fathom. We can't let it happen again. But if you believe that's just something these people are saying to make us look bad, that's because they're such horrible people, you are able to dehumanize the other population very easy. It starts with education. Critical thinking. Hold on, look, when you smoke a lot of weed, you look like Fire Marshal. Let me tell you something. I mean, I saying if you did, like I heard from a friend.
If. So
same with
hopping back in the chat just a little bit.
Yeah.
People say you don't learn that in school. When I went to school with them and read that intersection, yeah, they didn't pay attention. The option should be public school. You want by moving, and he says the parents' privilege of brainwashing their children does not supersede the child's right in education. Smitty, I agree with most of that.
And I agree with Smitty on the mandatory public school. I mean, listen, if the wealthiest families in this nation had to send their kids to school with kids who, wouldn't be able to eat the right amount of calories and nutrition without assistance, those children grow up together, and it's harder for the wealthy child who grows up and inherits his family's business to then not just shit on this population, but like mow down this community so that they can build something because his friends live there. And it's basic. I know we've said all that. I've even said all that before, but that is how Finland has become #1 in education.
I get that.
Yeah. Their teachers have to have a doctorate.
The only thing that because I try to I argue with myself on all of my positions, and one of the things that I worry about the most was option by moving, right? I think there's enough schools, at least in the area that I'm in. You have some school choice just because you're in proximity of enough of them. I think they should all be public. I don't think there should be any private schools.
Right.
And the two problems that I always run into in my mind when I'm trying to mandate it for everyone is, one, bullying. So you need to have some kind of school choice for a kid to feel like they're in a safe environment where they're around people that they can trust and aren't gonna make them feel terrible about this. Like, some kids need a fresh start, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think you can get around that. Yeah.
Yes, it says, keep in mind, homeschooling isn't just for religious freaks or privileged. A lot of disabled children also have to be homeschooled because public schools do not have the facilities or training to look after such very special needs in children. They are getting better, but still not fully inclusive as ideally as you imagine, which is very true. especially in more rural areas.
Cool.
Yes.
I agree with that, and that is part of my other part of the issue is that, and also and this is a weird one for me because, and I would love to do a full show discussion and get someone on who knows more about these communities than I do, but I live next to some Amish country,
Mm,
and I know that they homeschool or do some version of it, right? They don't pay taxes like the rest of us, so like I'm still trying to develop my policy on
yes.
those like Amish, right? People
Right. And
who want to remove themselves from society as we do it,
yes,
but
exceptions
choose
are
still to
acceptable.
huh?
There should always be exceptions, and they should
Mhm.
fall into, like, they need to check these things off. That's perfectly fine. I
No,
understand.
but see, like a lot of that's religious too,
Right.
right? And
I have a problem with teaching children things that are not demonstrate or not demonstrably factual as truth. Not that they
I do
can't be
too.
taught, but teaching them this is the truth, to me, is a form of mental abuse. It just is.
It is, and I agree with that, but also like, and I don't think you and I differ on this. But like, as long as everyone's getting like a standard education during their normal school hours, you want to take your kid to fucking Sunday school or Wednesday night church?
Youth
Go
group.
for it. Yeah,
Yes,
youth
and
group,
there's nothing
do
wrong
that.
with saying
I
this
don't like
is
it. I might not agree with it, but that's part of your religious freedom. And if
right.
you want to educate your kids during that time, because that's literally fucking Sunday school and youth group, that's what it's there for. You have like, I'll fight for your freedom to do that. But I don't want you to do. I don't want you to do it.
We have a chatter named Christ Brings a Sword, which, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, cool. I like sword fighting. If the
Too.
United
Good.
Nations dragon in the Revelation, sorry, I'm not trying to laugh, is the dragon in Revelations 12, then we are literally entering the year of the dragon next year. I mean,
That's fantastic.
okay, dude. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's great.
But are they
Yeah,
being serious?
I hope the Nephilims come, and all of that. Revelation is, I mean, you do not need to take mushrooms to have a trip by reading that, is all I'm saying. And if you
Mm-hmm.
believe any of that is factual, well, that right there proves our point that education is not adequate in this. And also, I do not have a problem with teaching children your religious myths, whatever they might be, by, here's what we can demonstrate is true with the creation of the world. This is what is demonstrable. This is what the majority of the people in this field, these are the facts. However, those are the facts. Our beliefs with religion are these things. Now, that doesn't make them wrong or right. That is what our religion teaches us, and it is a way to live by. And by teaching that, I believe you're giving your kids a better foundation of, here's what we can prove, how this and this happened. It didn't happen in 7 days. There was not just two people that populated the world with, when the Bible obviously negates that itself, when there's only two people and then they have kids and then those kids go to the town next door to marry people. Like, um, but okay. But it's by teaching these are our religious values and stories, and what our religion teaches us. And then here's the things that we can demonstrate are true. And if you teach kids, they grow up in this, they don't have a problem with saying, well, I can't hold both because it's just always been. There are a lot of Catholics, there are some extremists and some fundamentalists, not talking about those, have for decades and decades accepted the facts of evolution and have no problem with fables. Adam and Eve is a fable. There's a moral of the story, and A fable is a perfect word for it. A fable, when you look up fable, one of the things in it is it has talking animals. Well, yeah, not just talking animals, but bushes talk, and all kinds of, it is a fable. And by telling them the by teaching them that this over here is of the devil, even though it's demonstrated and the whole world knows it's factual, but what we believe is true, and to not believe it would make you an apostate, is child abuse. And you're making that child be unequipped to go to college, because they get there and everybody's at this level and they can't even wrap their mind around it, because that's not something that was taught. It's just not okay to do to kids.
Okay, so let me jump in here real quick to piggyback on that, because this is why I wanted to talk about it. Politics isn't hard. But sometimes when you really get in the weeds of things, this is what arguing is for, right? So the reason I focused on Smitty's comments so much, one is because he put like 5 in a row, so it was really easy to see. 2 is because I really, really care about this topic of education. 1, because I was homeschooled, right? And that helped and hindered me multiple ways, right? But when I'm trying to figure out how I want to be policy-wise on education, how I would want to legislate it, it's really difficult for me, because that really is one of the most difficult ones. It's not like healthcare where the doctors and the government controls your body. No, the government pays for your fucking healthcare, right? But when it's education, it really is a little more difficult, because what you learn, look at mainstream media right now. Like, what is truth, right? It is a lot more controversial, and I get why. That's why I think philosophy needs to be taught more than just like information, and sometimes even history, because you need to learn how to process information, not be taught how to memorize facts and events. It is one of the most harmful ways that we do teach. And I really, really don't. It is a principle, it's a pillar of mine that I don't want to be authoritarian. Right? So I have to balance it with like, how do we get a good standard of education to everyone without forcing certain education like down someone's throat? We have to be careful with it. And that falls along. And part of the reason is because I'm an atheist now. I used to be a Christian. I agree with a lot of what Christy is saying. Like that, like, for like the apostate reason or the hell reason of not believing is some form of child abuse, right? And
as true. Yes.
It's we need to tread carefully, because there's also freedom there. Like we do want families to feel like they can choose, give to raise their kids the way that they want to. You need that in a society. It's incredibly important, because we don't want the government down anyone's throat. That's again anti-authoritarian. So I like to err on the side of freedom, even though that like there's a lot of traditions and religious beliefs that can fuck people up in a church or in a family. Sometimes you need to give people enough rope, as that saying goes, to hang themselves. Like, you need to give them that rope and hope that they don't, because sometimes it's their choice. Right? So I like to err on the side of freedom when it comes to things like that. It's really, really important to me, because I remember debates with Max Colby and Shannon Q and he just was the world's biggest fucking victim and blamed our community for fucking everything. And Shannon blew up at him. It's like, I would fight for your fucking right
Amen.
to believe how you believe and practice it how you want. And I had never thought of it like that as a Christian or an atheist until that point. And I'm like, this is a turning point. I need to remember this because it's really important. I don't want anyone controlling how I get to live my life and how I get to express myself. And that's the whole fucking view of like the LGBT community. That's the whole thing of like any oppressed religious group ever. And it goes down to education.
You just said, I don't want anybody or the government telling me or myself. I agree. But we're talking about children.
Right.
And when they don't believe the parents, they are, almost like borrowed and loaned. They are their own individual people. And I don't think there's anything wrong with raising them in your religious traditions if that is something that you value. I do think that it is wrong when you teach them things that are demonstrably false as truth. I don't think there's anything that can change my mind on that. That doesn't mean that I won't listen and try to gain more knowledge. And maybe I'm even wrong on that. However, you do make a good point. There is nuance in it, and no government or any secular or religious group should have any authority to use tyranny to say, that you have to do this or have to do that, except for you do have to make sure your children are safe. I think that you do have to feed them. You do have to, I think there are things that every parent should do, and one of them is making sure they have a good education. Adding religion to that education is perfectly acceptable to me. I do not have a problem. I'm not okay with it for me. And my children got to choose, actually. Isabel went through middle school where she was going to a youth group with her friends all the time. And then she said it was there that she realized that none of it. She was just like, these people, these adults are walking around like they're talking to someone who's not there. And she just couldn't do it. Yeah. But she had the tools to be able to take it in. And I didn't say, hey, don't listen to them. I said, oh, honey, that's great. Go with your friends. Be kind, have fun, be respectful. And when I came out as an atheist to my daughter, her reply was, yeah, I've been for years. Where have you been? And she told me it was during that middle school time because she was allowed, she had the tools of things that can be demonstrated to be true. And this is an addition. They were telling her that's fine. That's fine. These things that are factual that you have as knowledge. However, this is spiritual, not educational. And, she was interested and her friends were going. So she was able to be open and receptive and also able to see that she just couldn't, if they had not come at her with these things that cannot possibly ever happen, did happen, and no, we can't show you or prove to you that we know that they happened, we just believe it. That's when she was like, yeah, if I did that in school, they would say, yeah, you can believe that 70 plus this equals this, but that's not the answer. So right. I think that giving the tools is fine. Now, you made a point that's with these,
right?
With
it has to be strong enough.
You made a point with specific communities and specific populations, like the Amish or Hasidic Jews or whatever it might be. There is room for those conversations. These people shouldn't not be able to continue their communities and populations at all. I would not accept that for any religion unless it was hurting people, all the time. Now, I do think that it is hurtful to teach things that are not true as truth, and maybe someone someday could change my mind on that, but I just don't see how.
No, I want to make sure I caveat, like, I agree with that. Like, that's one of my biggest beefs with religion and Christianity in general, is that it's not true. I mean, I mean, one of the things that pisses me off the most when I'm listening to any pastor is when they talk with such certainty that they are correct. Like, this is true. I don't care what anyone says. It is. I'm like, oh, okay, well, you got to back that. I don't mind when you say you believe is true,
Right.
right? I don't mind when you're like, I really like, I kind of feel it in my bones. But then when you make a positive statement, like, all right, well, now I feel like I should argue with you, all right, because you're wrong, and 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 now we can, throw philosophical hands. But no, I agree that false beliefs are much less helpful than true beliefs, and often harmful.
Yeah.
And we just need an education system good enough to combat that, and we need a non-authoritarian way to apply it, and that's what I'm always trying to balance.
Had a tinkle.
Go for it.
I've been trying to like just ignore it, but my bladder said keep doing and see what happens.
All right, once you come back, we'll switch. Any more questions on that? Smitty, thanks for jumping in there and applying some pressure. He's a cool atheist. I agree. I'm gonna smoke weed about it. I don't believe in religious exception from the law. No, I don't. So part of the issue that I have with that, Smitty, especially talking about like the Amish community, I have the same. It's the same thing to me. Indigenous peoples groups that are apart from like our tax system. Like, I have a little more of an issue with people who are more sovereign that live in our borders, right? I mean, I think, and I have an issue with borders as well, right? So just because you're in the US, like on our land, you got to play by our rules, right? I think that there's an issue there, right? Whether they're Amish or they're they're indigenous, Native American, I think that it's not as clean cut. And if they want to remove themselves from society in certain ways, there should be a way to do that. And it makes me also want to ask the question on the other side is, well, we want to protect the children. They're like, they deserve a fair education too, like all around the world they do. But then we have to ask ourselves, how much do we want to get involved in other countries? And I know we're talking about ours, but we're also talking about people who don't want to be part of the social hours. So I hope you understand where I'm coming from with this and why I'm making it so difficult, because this is something I actually kind of think about a lot. Is when we get to education, because I mean, for healthcare, I feel like, oh yeah, you just open your doors to any immigrant, including sovereign peoples. You just take care of them. That's just what you do. But in education, like, 5 days a week, that's a commitment that you have to make. It's not just walking into a hospital. You can't just walk into a school, get educated, and then go home. It's a lot more muddied up. But when you're trying to standardize it for people who don't want to be part of the society, and then how do you protect those people without being authoritarian if they're sovereign or some kind of sovereign? Maybe I'm too confused on it, but I really think that there is a disconnect there that needs to be solved by people who care about this kind of stuff. So I think about it because I do care about it and I want a good answer to it. I'm going to read what you wrote though. Said jurisdiction is whatever. If the Amish can run a secular public school themselves, then let them. But then I would hope it doesn't discriminate against non-Amish people who live near them. I think I agree with that. People in other countries should also have mandatory secular public school. I'm fine with school systems not being run in the U.S. government if not being run in the U.S. government if they're U.S. schools. Yeah, like again, I want to make sure I say that like as much as I err on the side of freedom, I also err on the side of secular because I think that is freedom. I think having secular views is freedom from religious views. So I hope that makes sense the way I said that. But so like if you want to choose education, that's kind of why I pick philosophy. Why I say like that's the thing we should be teaching in school. Um, you teach philosophy, you teach how to think, you teach how to think about religion, and you can do some comparative stuff. But you don't teach that any of them are. You don't even have to teach that any of them are false. You just teach some of the positions and how to process the information. It is secular and it is free. And then you can go to church that later that night. Like that's fine. Like on your own time, not on the public schools and taxpayers' dollars time. I don't think that each arguable religion is. I like your big ball, Christy. I
Big.
don't think they're all equal or deserve equal treatment.
I have a blue ball.
Blue ball, just
I
one
did
blue
say
ball.
blue. I said I have a
I
blue
know,
ball. Per.
singular.
No, as I
Not
was
that you're wrong, but
tinkling and listening to you talk, it is one of those that personally I am against teaching, like I said, children things as facts that can be demonstrated to be false. However, as a humanist, I would also march with, you know, religious groups who are marching so that they have the right. I think that freedom of religion, even though I do not subscribe, is paramount to a healthy democratic society. By telling humans, no, you can't do this. I mean, even if you have a valid point, you cannot teach your children this because we can show you that it's not true. You're just creating so many problems and excluding so many humans who are now going to double down. By doing that, you're creating more fundamentalists, more extremists. So
right away. Backfire.
Having like properly funded and proper education, paying our teachers not just better, but like a wage that people are like, I'm going to be a teacher because they make good money and they're here by putting that up and making sure that education is top notch. You're not going to get to everyone, like you said, in those Amish communities that will never ever go to these schools, and that's fine. That's fine. You'll get more, and more is better. And if our publicly educated young Americans are being educated with, amazing education, we're creating kids who can't be fooled politically, who are not going to be able to, who are media literate, who understand that if they want something better in the community they live in, they have to get involved because we the people actually means we the people, which it does locally. Just it's the further up you get, the more it's just we the corporations. However, that's a different conversation. I think that it is difficult, like you said. Maybe I'm just confused, and I don't know if the confused is the right word, but there might not be a right word for it. That's, I think, humanism in you sees the human in them and understands that this is something that they or this community cares about a lot. Their ancestors cared about it, and they're just passing this down. And we do not want to create blowback. And so to accept people where they are, their religion isn't hurting anyone, even if I think their children, these things are true when they're not. To me, that is abuse. It could be a billion times worse, and they're not hurting anyone. There's their own community. You know, there is a space for
Not
that. There's a space for those religious sects in our country. And as a humanist, I will accept them how they are. I just think the rest of us need to educate our children that these people do exist. These are the things that they believe. And just because they're different doesn't mean you treat them different or you
right.
are horrible to them. It means you are fortunate that you grew up having all this education and you know these things. And so they weren't that fortunate when it comes to that part of education. However, we can still learn things that we don't get in our world from these communities. I'm not saying everything, but there are. Whether it's just a folk song that you didn't know about or a way to churn butter, you know, like I live in Florida, a hurricane comes, we have no electricity for a week. We could learn a lot from people who do not live with electricity.
Yeah.
So you just have to look for those things. As a humanist, I do get it. As with Smitty, I understand when he says no exceptions for religion. My core wants to be like, yeah, fuck that. Because I think of children, I think of my children, and I wouldn't want that for them. However, these are not my children, and I wasn't raised in this sect. So, as a humanist, yeah, there's so much nuance there, and we have to support people who are different.
I agree. And I and Smitty put so much more in there, and I want to acknowledge it and just throw my thoughts at it real quick.
Yeah.
But I agree with everything Christy's saying, and I think it was well put. Um, so he said, if you argue for Amish people to be able to separate their children from outside society and go to their own schools with their own ideology, what about white supremacists? Would they be allowed to form their own communities and bring up their children and their worldview? Then he said something about googling girls on yoga balls, which is a perfect time to put that. Um, uh, Religious people can teach their children whatever they believe in addition to the necessary education that every child is owed as a right, and I agree with that. I already said that a couple times tonight. Parents do not get to take away that right based on separatist tribalism. Yes, I hate tribalism, but that's what I'm struggling with right now. Um, Stopping people from passing down their beliefs to their children would be cultural genocide. Sorry, I'm stuttering tonight, and I don't support that. What I support is protecting the child's right to learn the knowledge. Now,
And there's a
again, I I
quote.
I agree with the heart of all of that, every
Yes.
word, but I muddy up the waters, I guess. The thing that I have an issue with is again like and the indigenous peoples, because if you look like 150 years ago when we thought we should standardize education for people who aren't really part of our society or were separate from our society, that ended
Mhm.
horridly. And also um Amish, yeah, also white supremacy, yeah, if they don't want to be part of our society, I would hold whatever conclusion I come to with the Amish and Native Americans. I would be like, yeah, well, if you are separate from society, then it doesn't matter whether or not I support you because I'm not supporting you with my tax money, and you're not really part of my society. Now I have to like worry about how I invade your community to get what I want, and I don't really want to do that. And it's the same thing with the North Sentinel Islands. There
Yep.
are human beings, and they are separate from everyone else. And we have decided this is one of the few things we've done as all different countries have agreed on, not going there and fucking their shit up because they
Right.
are separate from us. And I agree with that. I don't know if mom and dad sleep with their kids.
Right.
It's a completely different culture. And I know that is an extreme, but I need to balance that extreme with what I want to do with people within our borders who don't want to be part of our society and a little bit beyond that, right? Um, it's difficult. It's not like, because I thought this in the back of my head, it's not like Israel Gaza, because Israel is stomping on Gaza. They are putting the boot on their people, right? And Gaza wants to be part of that society, at least to a point. So that one's a lot more clean cut. You know, you just don't murder people, and you don't do an apartheid. And we're not even talking, like, this is like the opposite of apartheid. People want to be treated separate with separate laws and kind of have their own space. And it's weird when you get that. Like, they have to play by the rules until they don't. And there's some people who really are apart from some of the rules. Like, Amish people can't murder us. Right? Like they still use our roads, and their horses crap on them.
Yeah.
So like it really is an interesting thing that needs to, like, that is sorted out from time to time. And I don't know how I would do it in each case, especially when we're talking about education. I already told you what I do with healthcare. As far as white supremacists go, I mean, yeah, I think for tradition's sake, if you want to just pass down a tradition that makes no goddamn sense, like you cook a ham with the leg still on it, I don't know, like, doesn't make sense. But then you have to fall back to your rights end where mine begins. So then if there's violence or anything, that falls back to, like, well, that's violence, right? And we don't tolerate that from anyone who doesn't live in our country, or does.
Right.
Like, we just don't tolerate that. And we don't tolerate child abuse, just period. Whether you're in our society or not. If we can hear the screams down the street, you better believe your neighbors are coming down. Whether you're part of society or not, they're gonna stop you. And I'm okay with that idea. But it is interesting legislation and policy there. So I wanted to make sure I acknowledge, because you typed a lot. We've gone through this for like 45 minutes, and I didn't want to just leave it there on the floor.
It's very nuanced. Not everything. Some things are just like, it's simple, you guys. This is just not one of those. Freedom is a democracy, and freedom and the acceptance of a vast amount of people is hard work. That's why it's easier to just pick someone who's a tyrant and let them decide for you. I mean, I don't. That's horrible. But for a lot of people, it's like, oh, we have to deal with them, which means we have to compromise, which means both sides walk away feeling like they lost something. But what kind of society do we want to live in, you know? And it is one of those, especially as atheists, humanists, we care about we're just atheists, but who advocate for humanism. There is room to have these conversations with all types of Americans about the democracy we live in. And it is one of those that could last, you know, for months, the conversation. It just is. And I'm open to those conversations. I am.
Yeah.
I agree. Yes, I agree with, you know, what Smitty's stopping people, like you said, from passing down their beliefs is to their child would be cultural genocide, and I don't support that. What I do support is protecting the child's right to learn the knowledge. And to that, I do say that the Amish do provide, it is a tradition, Rumspringa, which, you know, they're 18, they get to go away and feel the world. That is our responsibility as a society then, to have these things when they go, not just them, all of our children of all ages. There are these, you know, services, there's education, and to show them all, not just all these things that you taught were wrong, not, fuck that. This is, we'll accept you how you are, and how about there's this education and these kind of jobs, and you can make this type of money, and you can, you know, give back to your community, and here's how you do it. That kind of environment needs to be, you know, cultivated, so that not just Rumspringa kids, a lot of them get the culture shock because they come out and to the world for the Rumspringa, and they find out that you know, it is a dog eat dog, you know, capitalist world. And yes, it's hard work back at the farm, but is vicious in the world, and people think you're weird because you're different, and that's not the America I want to cultivate or support. And just because I don't support teaching children that the Amish way is the only way, as these children are taught, that doesn't mean
That's
that
some
these
great
kids.
ways.
Well, yeah,
Pie? Have you had their pie?
yes, their
I've had a lot
pie,
of Amish pie.
many things, yes, many things,
Big
yes.
one.
But having
Houses.
a society and a community that is supportive and wants to embrace them and show them there's nothing wrong with how you were raised. However, this is how we do this, and this is how we do this, and you can bring what you learned and tell us about it, and we can learn from each other. I know that's utopian, it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that it is not something I don't support and want to fight for. And so I guess we've kind of walked that dog with this conversation.
We have. And just another extra special shout out to Smitty for participating in this conversation as much as you did. I really appreciate it. So
I told the chat that Smitty is the best chatter of the year award is what goes to Smitty. Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Always
I think last year that might have gone to Brantley. So I think we got Brantley and Smitty have gotten that.
Well,
Award.
Brant only had to leave because he is working the night shift and he works for, an authoritarian type of situation. He has to. We're not getting into his employer. However, he told me, I'll be there. I'm excited, but I can't stay because he has to go back to work. So thank you, Brantley, for showing up. If you're still listening, and we love you.
Yeah. All right. Well, the DNC sucks. Biden's losing it, and we're going to go to Israel. Let's do this, Natcha. Yeah. Last topic. 10 minutes for the worst topic. You can do this. I'm ready to start, unless you want me to, or unless you have something to say before I dive right into numbers.
I would like to say that an Israeli said, being a smartass, of course, what separates a Palestinian from the animals? A Palestinian responded, the wall. I'm just saying. I love that. He thought he had a gotcha, and yeah. We can go in. Yes, I know. Oh my God.
You guys can screenshot. I'm sorry. I'm not putting up things on my screen. Screen share.
9,643 children is 100% unacceptable.
It's incredibly. So let me read out some of this. 24,711 killed. This was on the 14th. This was yesterday. Yeah, we're almost over the 25,000 mark for dead Palestinians since October 7th. Children, I know we're past the 8,000 mark. I'm looking. I don't know if it's on this one. Injuries are over 50,000. Killed journalists is 83. Displaced, 1,850,000 Palestinians. The population is 2.3. Don't forget. So that's like 75% of all of the Palestinians are displaced. They don't have a home. I heard Florida's taking Palestinians in. All of them, right? Ron DeSantis put the word out. Said, we'll take all the Palestinian refugees we can. We only want to help those who need it. I'm pretty sure. And completely destroyed units, housing units, 62,990. Partially destroyed units, 172,055. Destroyed slash damage press headquarters. Press headquarters, 140. Damaged schools, 286. You know, you can't be having animals learn. Destroyed industrial facilities, 1,356. That's just their infrastructure. You don't need to be able to make things to function as a society. Damaged mosques, because churches are dangerous. 142, 142 of those. And damaged churches, 3. Just damaged. The rest were destroyed. 145, 142 were destroyed. And targeted health staff, or getting close to 500, is 446. Targeted health facilities is 124. That would be 22 hospitals, 55 clinics, and 46 ambulances. You know, those ambulances that are harboring Hamas. Oh, I could have clicked on it and made it a little bigger. Oops. This is utterly disgusting. I want you to remember that everything I just read to you is basically just the victim numbers of Palestinians. But remember, victims are made by oppressors and perpetrators, and in this case, terrorists, which is the IDF and the administration that is the head of Israel. And Israel is backing the IDF, which is a terrorist organization by definition. There is no allegedly. You look at the numbers and you see, oh, okay, I see the numbers now. 9,643 children dead, 3,109 women dead, 22,901 civilians in all. How many Hamas have been killed? Have we broke 100 Hamas?
Yeah, well, they're claiming that it's anywhere between 1,500 and 3,000, but we have nothing to collaborate that. So
okay, so
we the word for it.
We could be kind of generous and say like maybe 1,000, right?
That means that 95% are civilians.
95. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a terrorist organization. We should.
The United Nations alone have lost over 100 and something, people that work for them, doctors, and it's just 101. Yeah, 101. And this is, the United Nations has never, ever, this is the first in the history of everdom.
And it's confirmed killed by the IDF.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Not by Hamas. They videotaped it.
Mm-hmm.
They videotaped it. There are directors of hospitals who have been, for a lack of any other term I can think of, kidnapped by the IDF, blindfolded, handcuffed, and are still missing because they think that they are in cahoots with Hamas. If I hear one more motherfucking time, do you condemn? Like, I might literally blow a gasket.
Yeah.
Because do you condemn? How about October 5th, October 4th, October 3rd? Let's go, let's say October 22, October 21, October 20, 19, 18. Do you condemn any of the mowing of the lawns? Do you condemn any of those? Nobody's ever asked to condemn them.
Of course not. Right. And what's so appalling to me is that I was disgusted, as you are, pointing out that before any of this, obviously, Israel, I'm going to say it this way, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Israel was asking for it. It was asking for October 7th. They wanted to support Hamas, and the actions that they take, these offensive actions or defensive that aren't defensive, This is what creates terrorism. We know this because the US is really good at making terrorists.
We have a term for it. It's called blowback.
Yeah, it's called blowback. They were literally asking for it. And
Yes.
I'm sure that the civilians weren't, at least as much. But
No.
the powers that be, the administration, they were. The way that they mow the lawn and help Israeli settlers, that causes blowback. And now you don't even need it. You don't need to know everything else that happened. You can say, oh, wow, some extremists attacked Israel at a concert. Some things got overblown a little bit about a whole bunch of babies being killed and beheaded, thrown in ovens.
Yes.
And then 10,000 children were murdered next door. That's wow, that's bad. That's you don't need any other context. But it's sad that there's so much more context. It's disgusting. It's outrageous. And yeah, just
after diving into international law, as you know, my nerdy self.
Please do.
Under international law, an occupier has no right, it's not legally able to attack or bomb, siege a population that they are occupying. They are actually, under international law, responsible for the education, the food, the water, the healthcare, and the safety. So putting a wall around them and blocking them in like a prison, no one can get out, no one can get in, that is a war crime itself. And then under the international law that was put in place because of what happened during World War II to a specific population of people and many others, including the Romney and many other groups of people, not just Jewish. But because of that, an occupied people have the legal right to resist, to fight for their freedom, and the legal right of return. Yeah. And those are words.
Couldn't even return during a ceasefire.
Right. And so when I hear Israel has the right to defend itself, I am like, my head wants to spin around like Exorcist, and I want to start throwing up all over everyone. Every sovereign nation has the right to defend itself. Every community has a right to defend itself. Every human has a right to defend itself. However,
when you say that, because it's obviously not true.
Well, when you say on October 7th, they started this war. The war didn't start on October 7th. It didn't. I do not condone any type of murder, any type of physical terrorism to people. The right to resist, I do support. And, if you're calling that terrorism and atrocities, which I agree, there was some atrocities, there's some atrocious behavior. I can also then go to my history in here and go to, the Nelson Mandela and his, I forgot, of course, I want to say it and I can't think of it, it's 3 letters. Anyway, their group was known for doing terrorism and atrocities. He was known as a terrorist, and it was a terrorist organization in our country till 2008. Mandela on Palestine, and if anyone wants to see him say it himself, he says on Palestine, people in Palestine have the right to resist. They can do nonviolent, they can do marches, they can do all these things, but when nothing else works, then he says, I support their right to violent uprising. And then he needed help to walk away from the stand because this was towards the end of his life when he just couldn't believe this was still happening. I can't imagine losing my children and not being able to bury them or get their bodies out of the rubble because we can't do it. and then not knowing if they're alive or dead, and then days and days go by, weeks go by. Obviously, they're dead now. And then this happens again and again, and everyone I know has lost people and their homes. And then someone comes to me at age 14, 15 and hands me a gun and says, do you want to fight back? Fuck yeah, I want to fight back. I'm not saying that that's okay. It's fucked up that that situation happened, that that kid says okay. It's just,
Yeah, no,
my
so
heart hurts every day, Matt.
yeah, I've always struggled with this, right? Like this is why like I like to quote Martin Luther King. When he kind of agreed with Malcolm X, like, you know, he said writing is the language of people who go unheard. This is how you make terrorists. And
Yeah,
this is the problem. This is the problem with what Christy and I are doing. We are humanizing people who will commit atrocities. But if you don't humanize them, will continue to be the people who are committing atrocities. And it causes cognitive dissonance, and it causes white people's feelings to get hurt. Not just white people's, but I had to say it that way for funniness. It causes people's feelings to get hurt. Like I'm not the bad guy. Well, you kind of are, especially if you're condoning it. Like I've said it over and over the years since I did that deep dive on the diocese of the Catholic Church in Pennsylvania, which one I'm talking about. That I'm like, hey, if you're giving money to the Catholic Church, you're helping rape kids, or at least covering it up or paying for the court costs on the side of they're innocent. It's the same thing. And when you humanize that 14-year-old in this instant, it's reasonable. When someone hurts that much, they feel like they have nothing else to lose. I think you're kind of crazy if you don't want revenge, right? Like there's a part of your brain broken, whether you want it or you don't. And it's not a problem that is reasonable that you want to commit violence after atrocities are done to you. It's a problem that something atrocious happened to you to make you want to do that violence. I feel like that's the bigger problem. And it can be a revolving door, but it still makes sense. It doesn't justify it to the point of like, well, okay, I understand it, so it's okay. It can still be wrong because it will cause more issues. Violence begets violence. But we do need to humanize those people, those victims, and then later potentially oppressors. We need to understand them enough to stop making them.
Yeah.
It's policy's not hard.
Yeah, I can give a real life example. I can give a real example of someone who their rebuttal to me saying, you know, we have to fucking stop this displacement, genocide, ethnic cleansing. We have to be on the right side of history, is not going to remember people who supported this in a good way. And the rebuttal was, you're supporting people who wouldn't accept you, you know, because you're gay. And I said, so we kill them all? Like, what? How is that? I don't have to accept an ideology or hate an ideology to understand that the people who hold that ideology are people who they love their children as much as I do. Their children love their parents as much as, you know, and if you don't want them to be extremists and fundamentalists, then stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. It just is, you know, they have arrested over 4,000. I saw one that said almost 7,000 Palestinian children, women, and men from the West Bank since October 7th. Since October 7th, they have chased out complete communities in the West Bank, telling them with guns to their head, if you have 24 hours to leave your home, or we will kill all of you. And these people know they will. So they pack up enough stuff for a few days and head out, and they're sleeping in the wilderness. And now everything is gone. I just, how is this okay? And then I mean, I could say, as I've heard people say, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not Christian. I'm not Jewish. You pay taxes, right? You pay taxes. You have a dog in this fight, because we don't have enough money for healthcare for everyone. We do not have enough money for proper education for everyone. We cannot guarantee abortion when abortion care is paramount to family planning, when all three of those policies are not only supported but available to everyone in Israel. Healthcare, abortion care, education, taken care of. But we give them $11 million a day, 3.7 billion a year. You know, I'm not blanket statement on, you know, well, all Jews. I think that is called anti-Semitism, and it's fucking disgusting. Anti, you know, Islamophobia, disgusting. Anti-black or indigenous, disgusting. A human is a human is a human. The GPS location of your mother's vagina on the day you were born does not in any way determine the value of you as a human. And that's from Bo of the Fifth Column.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It doesn't. You didn't choose, hey, mom, stop right here so I can be born here. Like, it's
educate. Ideologies are not sacred. Mm-hmm. They ought to be argued with. They can be hated. But human lives are sacred. You like those are what we need. I mean, but we're humanists. And that's why seeing this is so sad. Look, we went into this for like 20 minutes, and all we did is read the numbers for you, basically. We didn't go into how the hospitals are crumbling. They don't have beds. There's just patients on the floor. They're doing amputations and surgeries without anesthetics.
Listen, not only are the IDF filming themselves going to these lorries, these trucks that are filled with humanitarian supplies, and setting it on fire, but the trucks they are allowing to go through, they are going into these truck supplies and removing the anesthesia. Removing the anesthesia. This isn't a hearsay. This is documented by United Nations and NGOs. It is, and videos that they are so proud. If you guys don't believe me, go to Telegraph, go to 72 Virgins. I'll send you the link. It is an official IDF thing that they put out, and they're like, listen to this video. You can literally hear her skull crunching. You can hear this, and we killed him. They're dragging people through streets. Like, they're proud of this. They're proud of this. Under no, I have no words. I have no words.
This is this.
I told Stacy the other day when she came home, I said, watch this or watch that. And then I just start crying, and I'm like, yesterday I thought, this is the worst, most atrocious, maniacal shit I've ever seen. There's no way they can ever, no one can be worse than this. And then the next day, they literally are like, here, hold my beard.
Yeah, no, I told Rachel yesterday, I'm like, this is the worst thing I've seen since the Nazis. And she hasn't been focused on it. And I'm just like, it's taken a long time for
You know
me
they've been
just
right on their arms, right?
the what?
Literally, they're
Yeah, they're
arresting.
writing numbers on their arms.
We
Yeah.
know this because one of the United Nations and Doctors Without Borders said, "Hey, that guy that you're calling, a naked out here as Hamas, he's actually a surgeon for us." Another guy said, he has an aluminum, or another family. This guy owns an aluminum factory. These aren't who you think they are.
Yeah.
And then those guys get released because there's such an uproar. And he says they're writing numbers on our arms. I know because I'm number 57. Like, I'm just like, nobody does nobody see this? Does nobody go, wow?
Yeah.
Wow. I just,
It's
yeah, I don't.
scary. It's atrocious, and we can't shut up about it. Because it's this this is one of those things like that's happening in our times that like, in the next 10 or 15 years, I don't want my kids to be like, what'd you do about it? I'm like, well, I shouted as much as I could. Like, I didn't apologize for it. Right. Um, I told everyone I knew that had a different opinion, like, well, this is why you're wrong. You want to see some pictures? Right? Like, letting people know what's really going on is important, and taking a stand against it is important. And it's really scary stuff. This is it's atrocious. I know everyone has their own opinions. I said it on the last show, around this time, like close to close, is just like, look, like I am majoritively, like 99.5% against the death penalty, except for people who are just monsters who commit the worst kind of crimes. And this is one of those things where it falls under under that for me. I'm like, yeah, like I think the IDF who's over there doing this, along with the Netanyahu administration, I'd be fine if like the UN, any kind of Security Council, sentence them all to death. Like, that wouldn't hurt my feelings at all. I would be happy about it. Like, no, like they're calling the Palestinians animals, and they're being monsters.
Right.
Like, we don't have room in humanity for people who are so anti-human. Like, that's my line.
Right.
Like, I feel like it's like it's a high bar, but they jumped it. Yeah. Well, I mean, and Smitty, I love that you're always in the conversation. The death penalty serves no purpose but revenge, and I don't believe revenge should ever be part of the justice system. Yeah, and I don't think it should be revenge. I think it should just be like, well, you said you want to die for you would die for your country. Like, you are giving up your life if you want to go murder people this bad. Or we should go to war with them to stop them from killing people. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you fight a war for? And this is like, again, this is my line.
These are Israelis making fun of Palestinians and having their children join in. There's an actual song put out by a children's choir that's all in Hebrew, talking about, making sure that they level it and there'll be nothing there, and we'll be able to go and resettle Gaza. And this song, and then they say we can't, there are no Palestinians who aren't terrorists because they raised their children with this ideology. And I'm like, are you talking to yourself in the mirror? Because I just
Yeah, it's insane. And this is it's just too much. It's just too much, and you need a better education system and philosophy and things like that. I can't remember the dude's name. I listened to a little documentary of an Israeli settler. He was on recently. Can't remember where. I'll have to find it. Where he started going to this little club in the West Bank where they would sit down with Palestinians and they would talk and hash out their differences and share their life stories and why they're scared of the other. And it was a beautiful thing. And there's so much propaganda on the Israeli side, especially, that it causes families to dress their kids up like Christy just showed you, to dehumanize the other side, other children.
Mhm.
And it's sad. And they are causing those children to grow up to be terrorists, like the IDF is now today. And I don't think we should punish those children or even those civilians, right? They're being nonviolent. They're stoking flames, but they're in no position of power. And sadly, people who used to be kids like that are, and they're over there with guns and setting trucks on fire with aid. And Netanyahu is in power, and they are making decisions to not just kill, but to massacre. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's
not just that, the leaders over there, like Itamar Ben-Gvir, Jewish Power is what he's a part of. He's the national security minister, who's also a settler, who's in charge of handing out all these semi-automatic weapons to settlers. He's the leader of the far-right Jewish Power Party, is appointed national security minister. He was previously convicted in Israel of incitement to racism and supporting a terrorist organization. Following an agreement signed with Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir will take control of the border police, which he already did, a branch of the military operated in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. He also lives in an illegal settlement in the West Bank. Orit Strzok, religious Zionist. She is this wasn't even a position in the Israeli government, but they had to make one for her. National Missions Minister. Ori Strzok is appointed National Missions Minister in the new government, the far-right government. She is a leading figure in Hebron settler community and founder of the human rights organization of Judea and Samaria, which is the West Bank, and they're going back to these biblical names. They refuse to call it anything else. A highly controversial settlement group, which does tours through the West Bank to mostly like Christian Zionists, telling them, look how they live. They're disgusting. I'm like, they're not allowed to work. They're not. Oh my, I just can't. Last week, she said doctors should not be required to treat patients when it contradicts their religious beliefs, which is interpreted as going after Palestinian citizens and members of the LGBTQ plus community. The remarks sparked backlash after she said that as long as there are other doctors who can provide similar or same services, a Jewish doctor, should not be compelled to compromise. Her son, by the way, was convicted and sentenced to 2.5 years only in prison for kidnapping and abusing a Palestinian boy. Okay. Ira Deary, Interior Minister and Health Administrator. He's the leader of the ultra-Orthodox Shas Party. He will lead both the Interior and Health ministries. After 2 years serving as Interior and Health Minister, he will replace Smotrich as Finance Minister, which now that'll be 3 things. Deary received a suspended sentence for tax fraud in January and made a deal with the court to not be banned from politics. A change in the law this week helped him be able, to be this. He's to keep ministers so that only people serving time in prison will be banned from taking office. Let's see. He's so horrible. Bezalel Smotrich, religious Zionism, finance minister and minister in the defense ministry, far-right religious Zionist party leader Bezalel Smotrich will be Israel's new finance minister, as well as being responsible for governing the occupied West Bank through a new role that was created just for him within this defense ministry. He is a notorious racist, homophobe, and Jewish ultra-nationalist, Jewish supremacist. He's okay with Jewish settlements on occupied land. In a speech to the parliament this last week, he said he had plans to regulate and strengthen their grip on the homeland as part of his role in the defense ministry. Like, I could just go on and on and on about these people who are in there. This is who they are. When they tell you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
And if I have to leave with one thing, I don't want it to be any of that. I would like it to be with the professor and poet that got annihilated. If you want to say anything before I read his beautiful poem that he put out so that it would be read if he died.
I'll go for it.
If I must die, let it be a tale. Rafat Alarir. If I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings. Make it white with a long tail so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze. If I must die, let it be a tale, and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If I must die, you must live, to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings, make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze, and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite, you made, flying up above, and thinks, for a moment, an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope, let it be a tale. He's gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's gone. And then I implore all of you to look up Bethlehem. No, I implore all of you to look up Bethlehem in the West Bank, to look up Bethlehem's Christian Church's nativity set. And then I will be able to share it to you, Mac. I can share it on Twitter. I can't put it in the chat because it's on my tablet, not my phone. But I'm putting it in our Twitter thing right now, and then you can share it in the chat. They decided to build a nativity set with the baby Jesus wrapped in a keffiyeh and a whole bunch of rubble, because what else can they do? Christmas has been canceled. Yeah. You see it?
Yeah.
It's just
I don't think I can put the picture in the chat.
You can put a link, right?
Yeah.
Al Jazeera covered it as far as like a news story. It's like 2 or 3 minutes long. Yes, Smitty, watermelon all day. Oh, guys, yes. It's hard. It is really hard. I have so much information, and I mean, none of it will change anything, you know?
Yeah.
And some of the people that I've liked for so long are on the wrong side of history, and it just breaks my heart.
Who's the ones you're thinking of, if you don't mind me asking?
This is my sister. She's nice. Borat. What's his name? I think he's a brilliant. What, Bill? Sasha. Yeah. Cohen. He's Sarah Silverman.
Oh, yeah.
Bernie. Disappointed as hell.
Yeah,
Yes,
really.
clock. We'll put it on the Discord. Definitely. As soon as we get done here, I'll put quite a few things. from tonight on there. I promise.
I think I got the picture.
Yeah.
I think I got it up. You guys try it out, see if it works.
It says not found.
Damn it.
Yeah, you suck.
Yeah.
Maybe not check it. Oh my god, I can't sit any longer.
All right. Well, we should probably get to wrapping up too. We've already gone about 2 hours. Thank you guys for sticking around. We have just as many people watching now as we did when we started. Thank you. Thanks for sticking around. We had a lot of discussions tonight. A lot to cover, a lot of detail.
And hopefully the machine will be completely, good to go by the time in a fortnight, as our Lord and Savior, Mr. Not Just says.
And
I love you guys. I love you guys, definitely.
Guys, have a Merry Christmas. Happy holiday season.
Yeah. Hanukkah as well. Happy solstice.
Yeah. And we'll see you before the new year if it all works out. For a godless sake.